So I was going to show you Pickin Sticks on the actual Vic-20, but for some reason turning that on, and I don't know, the TV keeps turning itself off. After I turn off the power strip and turn it back on, the TV turns on again for like a few seconds and then turns off again. So I don't know what that means. I'm not a TV repair person, so I'll just show you on the emulator, and I'll step through some of the other code and stuff that I have done. And this is all in a repository, so if you want the example code, that is up there as well. But I made a Pickin Sticks. Let's start with that. Basically, I've been writing in Genie, which is my favorite editor, and then I can just paste it in here, and it pastes in all the code. I, maybe not the most memory efficient, especially like storage related, because I use a lot of space. Oh, what does that say? Oh, I didn't run it yet. But if I run, it should work. So that it clears the screen. And then here we have our game screen. And I set up the controls to be WASD because on the Vic-20, your arrow keys are just the up down in one key and left right in one key. And you have to hit the function key to switch between them. And I'm just using basic graphics from the whatever ski code stuff it has built into the Vic-20. If you look at the keys, you see like the little graphical symbols. So I'm just using kind of a T shape for the stick, and my character's little black dot. And then we have a score up in the top, but I don't think that's going to work past the number 9. And then on the Vic-20, you can also set your border color. So I made that blue, and I made the background green, so it looks like you're on an island, I guess. But it's simple. Yeah, I think that this is not going to work once I get to 10, because I think I just kind of kludged that together. Now it's period points. Or not period, colon points. Semicolon points. Yeah, I'll show you what I did for these. I just have the basic reference book that came with the computer, and then I have a book of basic games, but it doesn't really explain how any of it works. So I have been kind of looking on some resources online and just figuring stuff out on my own as well, to get various examples set up. So I'll go ahead and reset this, and I'll show you some of the examples I've done. So over here, this, let's just copy paste it in there. So we have a little subroutine. I know it's harder to read on just how the text is wide on a Vic-20, but I basically wrote kind of a function. It's not really a function. This is kind of how I would have written this in assembly, because in assembly we would like kind of set up some variables or, registers, call another area, and then return from that area, and then pull those variables or registers back out. So basically, we have the user say, okay, enter X and Y, and then from that, it'll take the whole little formula to get what tile that is on the screen, because it's like I don't remember how many, I think it's like 23 by 22, but that'll give you the amount of tiles or characters in there. So for instance, if I do 0, 0, that is going to be the position here. If I want to change what that symbol is, I need to access this thing in the memory with poke. And with color, that's going to be what color this tile is. So that's how you can poke a specific place in memory. However, if I don't want 0, 0, if I wanted wait, we're not going to do 100. Let's just say 10 over 10 over, then I would have to change that symbol, change this memory address, and then change this memory address for the color. Not clear, new. So we also have something to get some color codes. It's been a little while since I looked at all this, but this just iterates through various color codes from 0 to 255 just to see what we get. So this one is how I've seen key presses done. Oop. Oh, I have that. Okay, I guess it's since... ignore that rem. I should just put these in something where you can type it out, but also just have more information about it that's not part of the code. But usually for something where you're not using the memory registers to look at the keyboard input, you can use this get, and if get is empty, then keep getting. So I can type in letters. Now that one's not showing up. And get those. So that would just be getting raw data from the keyboard. Instead, if you wanted to use the memory registers to look at what key was last pressed, then we have to peek at this memory address. And so currently I am not hitting anything, but here's D, A, W, S. So this is the sort of thing I'd also write on my like TI-83 plus basic thing. Not with the peek, because I wasn't using assembly on my calculator, but I would write something that's just like press a key and it would tell you the key code, because otherwise you wouldn't really know what the number is for that key code. And then this is how I was kludgely displaying the score, because I am not sure at the moment how else to do it, and I could write it to be a little more sophisticated. So that didn't really show much. It drew some stuff, but then I probably need to clear the screen. What is the button to clear this? That's not it. Is it this? I don't know, because this keyboard... There we go. Now we'll run. My keyboard, you know, the Vic-20 keyboard's not standard, so it doesn't map one-to-one to my normal keyboard. But I had it print hello 6-8. So over here, this is to print out H. Well, I get the location again for the symbol and the color. This is my functionality that I keep reusing in different projects. So at 0, 0, we're gonna put H. So for the color, make it black. Poke 8. So 8 is the H, 5 is the E, and so on. So then L is 12. The number, I guess 6, is 48 plus X. No, that's going to be 48 plus whatever that X coordinate is. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what I displayed there. And then 8 in that location. So that's how I'm displaying the score in Pickin Sticks. And if I wanted to do multiple digits, I'd have to account for that in the code. Then as far as trying to get some nice movement code going, this was just a test to like get all of the positions, make sure I knew how to access all of them, I guess. So this just goes through with a loop and displays stuff. Ignore the neighbors mowing their lawn. This one doesn't overdraw where it was just at, so like the screen does not clear. If you wanted to clear the entire screen using like the poke command, that takes a while because you have to do a loop. And then I also didn't want to use any of the special keys in the code itself, such as the clear screen, because it wouldn't copy right into my text editor from the emulator, and then also it's just harder to print that stuff out. So with Pickin Sticks, what I did for clearing where you were just at so you don't have this tail is I literally would keep track of your last X, last Y, and if your positions didn't match, it would just overwrite the old position with the grass color. So with Pickin Sticks now, let's clear the screen. I don't know the button, there it is. And we will paste this in. So that'll paste in for a while, but we can kind of step through how this is working. I really like readable clean code, so we'll just step through here. I know it's not the most space efficient, and I also have a lot of variables because I don't like magic numbers. So I'll try to explain these. Py and px are the player's position. Sx and sy are the stick position. Lx, ly are the last position you were at, so last cycle, what was your position? Ix and iy are the input x and y, so when we call my functionality to get the screen position and for the color and the symbol, we load whatever we're doing into ix, iy. So if we want to do it for the stick, we say ix is sx, iy is sy, and then we go to that subroutine, or we call it, and we can do that for the player as well. So I tried to make it so I could use it for anything. Then some useful variables here, initializing the player x and y to kind of roughly the center of the screen, setting variables for what the up, down, left, right key codes are, which these are the WASD, space, I forgot what space does, but, or maybe that's a space as in an empty area, I don't know. I don't think so. Space is for the space key. The width and height of the screen, so 21 characters wide, 22 characters tall. This is the player avatar, so the symbol, the little ball, and the player color. Empty is the, I think, just empty character. I think that's what it was, like the just drawing nothing on in a block. Stick color, stick avatar, and then we go to sub 700 that generates a random position for the stick. So we're using int random times width and height. Background color, I forgot what that is. And this, I think, sets the border and the background. This I should have removed because we're not using that. This was to clear the screen, but if you use a big O of n squared loop, it's very slow, whereas when you use just a linear or like a one loop, it's much faster. So there's no reason to use the two loops. That's how I do it in C++, but you know, I have a faster computer than a Vic-20. So if we just iterate from tile 0 to 505, we can clear the screen, and it was relatively fast. If it was the other one, it would be much slower. Getting input, so we store what the last position was. We peek at the memory address of where the last key pressed was. So that's at 197. Then we check if the key was up, then we subtract from the Y position. And actually I want to show you, I don't know if I can, does pause break work in here? No. Does escape work while I'm listing it out? Because I want to just, okay. I will show you my line 130. No, I let it go by a little fast, but I spaced these out. You can tell that they're spaced so that this is the width of the screen. This line right here. I have it spaced out so that it'll say if then is all aligned, and then it puts that command on the next line, because we really only are working with 22 characters wide. I really don't like it when the text wraps and it's harder to read that way. Again, spaces take up memory when you're storing text, but who cares? Okay, what is 600? What was the space bar? Oh, that was just to print like the debug information, so that was just for my own sake. I don't need that. This is to keep the character on the screen, also a very common game programming routine. So basically, if the player's y coordinate or x coordinate goes below 0, so if you hit left on the side of the screen and it becomes -1, it'll say, nope, you are at 0. And the same for if you try to go off the width and off the height of the screen, it'll put you back at the maximum value. This is to see if we picked up the stick. So if your x position equals the for the player and the stick, if the x and y match, then we'll go to 160 and deal with that. Otherwise, there's not an else statement in this basic, so there's just go to 250. So basically skip over this chunk of code as the else case, but if it's the if case, we'll go here. I really hope my phone alarm doesn't trigger stuff, because that's a song. Okay, so a nice thing about working with basic here and certain things where you kind of just are working with the character set on the screen and not actually like a bitmap sprites. And like if I did this in C++ with like, I have this many pixels, 640 by 480 or whatever else, you'd have to do your bounding boxes or some other form of collision detection. But since we're just literally working with 550 character spaces, and each character takes up literally just one character on the screen, we only have to care about, do the X and Y positions match? Because if they had a width and height each, you'd have to, like, are the bounding boxes intersecting in these different ways? So that's not that I would say BASIC is a great language to start to learn with in the modern day, but that is a bonus for if you're making little games. You don't have to worry about the collision detection as much. Anyway, so if we pick up the stick, we need a new stick position. This is commented out. Get rid of that. Go to 700. That again generates a random position. We'll add 1 to the score. That's what that stands for. This is why variables that are short are bad. Excuse me. Then we go to 250. And apparently this isn't being called, so I should probably erase that too. Go to 250. That just goes on with the rest of the program code. Clear the previous location. So again, if the player's X and Y do not match its last cycle's X and Y, then 260. This will clear whatever that specific last position was. So it loads the last position X and Y into my input X and Y, calls my special functions down here to get the symbol and character location, and then it comes back up here. I lost my spot. Okay. To replace it with the grass color and an empty square. Otherwise, we continue on with the program. So in 270, we draw the player. I don't know why I wrote it this way, but so again, load the player X and Y into the input X and Y, call the thingies, and then draw it to the screen. Draw the stick, load it into the inputs, call the thingies, then draw it to the screen. Then the score, and just like I showed you with that kind of kludgy poking characters onto the screen, where it only works from 0 to 9, that's what that does. And then here is our loop. Go to 130. I have this here so it doesn't try to call these or something, I think, when it pastes it in. I don't quite remember. I put end there for some reason. But then when we go loop back to the start of the game, we are here. Really, I should make it say, like, once you hit 10, maybe it'll do a game over screen, and maybe I'll fix that up so that you can't tell that I didn't do numbers above 9. It just ends the game and you won, so you don't care. But yeah, that's the basic code for Pickin Sticks. Does it work in a Commodore 64? I don't know. I don't know how similar their character sets are. Let's see if that does anything. Look at how much more space we have for activities on the Commodore 64. It's much nicer. and it doesn't seem to be doing anything. The memory locations are probably different, so uh, probably everything I wrote for that isn't going to work. But I don't have a Commodore 64. I have a VIC-20. Maybe I'll buy a Commodore 64 later on. I can't just go buying old computers every month with my pay. Um, but it is fun to play around with. I need to figure out why that TV's turning itself off, or I need to plug this into just a normal TV. That'll be really ugly because if it's a widescreen and then it'll go from already very wide looking text to even like stretched out very wide text. I don't know how good it will look on a. I want it on my CRT TV, but we'll have to figure it out. I'm not just gonna let it sit there and gather dust, right? Right. Anyway, uh, thanks for joining me as I step through all of this code. That took longer than I thought it would. Well, I guess I showed all the examples as well. But it was pretty fun to play around with. I'd like to do more with the memory manipulation. I just have been working on my day job, so uh, I haven't done that yet. And it's a little hard to find resources by just Googling stuff. There are some books, and I can find like some free books on archive.org and stuff. But as far as like if you just Google like how do I display number to the screen, it's not always easy to find. Basic is a word that isn't used for programming that much anymore, so search engines don't use it for the basic language. Um, there's just not it's not a lot. You know, the internet wasn't the thing the way it is now back in that day. So there's not archives of how to program basic. In one of my old magazines, I did see a advertisement for C. I don't know if that is probably not for the VIC-20. It was probably for maybe the Commodore 64 128 or other newer machines. Uh, that would be nice. That would be interesting to play around with, but I don't know. So anyway, basic. Yay! That's what I started on when I was a kid back in the olden days. But I didn't know how to do graphics because it was just in DOS in the book. I don't know. I was also like 8 years old or 10 years old, and I couldn't wrap my head around a lot of it. So, okay, bye. Go drink some water.